Out of all of the videos I've done addressing the issues of Pokemon Sword and Shield, this is perhaps the one that I feared having to make the most. Hashtag GameFreak lied has been trending all over Twitter, and after doing tons of research, I'm quite frankly shocked about what has been revealed through brand new data mines. Now, in my last video, we discussed what could be considered an omission by GameFreak. Only 400 Pokemon being in the game, which has now been updated to 435, although those last 35 Pokemon are just coded in with no apparent way to catch them, so it might just be through events, meaning only 48% of all Pokemon are available, despite them leading us to believe that just some Pokemon had been cut. Not a direct lie, but certainly an omission that we wouldn't have found out about until after we bought the games, which is pretty dishonest in my opinion. However, Game Freak has now officially lied to us about something of massive proportion for the Sword and Shield games. It pains me to say this, but a huge part of the reason that Game Freak gave us for why 52% of the Pokemon have been removed from the game has turned out to be false. They blatantly lied to us. Before we delve any further, I'd like to quickly point out that I'm not making this video to hate on Game Freak or the Sword and Shield games. I'm making this video to inform consumers that they have been lied to about a product that they may or may not want to purchase. I'm just sharing the facts because I feel that they should be known. The issue here is a moral one that affects all Pokemon fans, whether you are pro, anti, or neutral on the National Dex issue. Let's get into it and expose the truth of the matter. In July of this year, I made my last video on the Sword and Shield controversy before a 4-month hiatus from the topic because I felt I had said all I needed to, and this video pertained to the graphics of the games. Now, for me personally, graphics in Pokemon games have never been a massive deal since Pokemon games have never historically been known for them. That's not what we play them for. But there was a reason I decided to address them in the end, which we'll get into later in the video, but I also wanted to address something in particular. A Famitsu magazine interview with Masuda and Omori of Game Freak in which they said that all of the Pokemon models had to be remade from scratch, causing them to have little time to work on including all of the Pokemon in the games. Now, I for one found this to be so absurd that I actually doubted if this was being translated properly. However, numerous professional translators, including Joe Merricks from Cerebi, and numerous media outlets reported that this was indeed what Omori had said, translating it in English as follows. Even at the time of Sun and Moon, making it so all the Pokemon could be brought over was actually quite a difficult situation. But this time, the hardware is the Switch, and it was determined to remake the models from scratch, which meant we had to make a choice somehow, and that last part is regarding the decision to cut the National Dex. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt and essentially said, look, okay, we'll wait and see what happens regarding the reuse of models. Listen to what I said here, for instance. Apparently, without actually data mining the game itself, which won't be possible until it's either leaked or it releases, we won't be able to absolutely confirm either way, but it does seem quite suspect indeed, both logically and in terms of what numerous graphic designers have pointed out. The premature and often immature celebrations by some PokeTubers as to the translation being correct means little to nothing. The transcribers could have easily gotten it wrong, people can misspeak, exaggerate, or even lie to save face. Which I'm not saying was done here, but it remains a possibility nonetheless, and until we have absolute confirmation, nothing is certain. But the evidence sure does seem to stack against them having been made by scratch, and much of the other content of the sources that these people were obtaining this from were false to promote a certain viewpoint. And this goes for everyone. Be careful not to believe things too quickly to promote your side of the debate. People are of course going to want to spread misinformation to appeal to one's confirmation bias. Now, the ironic thing is that all the people who were overeager to defend Game Freak at all costs kept drilling home the notion that the translations were correct regarding making the models from scratch. And as it turns out, they were correct, but they've kind of died by their own sword here, if that's the right expression, since it now turns out that the statement that they were pushing for in order to attempt to justify the National Dex being cut and all that was actually a lie. But even still, I actively decided to abstain from making a determination one way or another at the time, and was obviously hoping that it wasn't a lie, but we've of course found out otherwise. In my eyes, and the eyes of many others, the reused models look pretty darn obvious, and there were several videos put out by graphic designers noting that it would be virtually impossible to have the models look so identical in terms of polys and vertices without directly importing them, including the fact that if they had redone them, you'd think they might improve the problems with the originals, like the rigid points in Gyarados' whiskers, for instance. And as I've said before, even if they did just copy the style of the old models, is that really from scratch since you have a complete base to work off of? We've also seen those models in Let's Go too. Did they have to remake them there? What about the 4 full generations worth of models that are present in Pokemon Go? In addition, many people were also inventing things like them saying the model didn't transfer over right from the 3DS, which was actually never said. But now, months later, as it turns out, the game has indeed leaked and has been data mined, and what do you know? We now have confirmation that the models were actually not made from scratch and have been reused. Data miners have posted numerous examples of wireframes being nearly identical. So far, we've seen Tyranitar, Clefairy, Scrafty, Charizard, Octillery, Lucario, Butterfree, Silvally, Flygon, Pikachu, Minccino, Incineroar, Primarina, Decidueye, Gardevoir, Xatu, Bulbasaur, and Noibat. But there are likely many others out there by the time this video gets to you. Now, the data miner has noted that the vast majority of these are identical. I mean, look here, this is the Sword and Shield model of Clefairy overlaid on top of the Sun and Moon model. Virtually no difference, but he does note that there are a couple very minor differences among a small minority of Pokemon, particularly with their triangle count, also known as the Tri-Count. Bulbasaur, for instance, has 172 less triangles, Noibat has 1,014 more triangles just in its face, and Clefairy has 2 more triangles. Even the few that have changes were quite minor ones that were evidently made to the old models, probably just subdivisions of triangles in order to give it a smoother look on an HD console. Even the ones that did have different triangle counts, this in no way qualifies as redoing the models from scratch. They've merely been slightly updated. Aside from that, the textures and the shadings have been updated, but again, they're working off of the old base models. Now, some might still argue that Dynamax forms required new models, but again, just like last time, numerous graphic artists have come out demonstrating that you can just upscale the models and add higher resolution textures and shading, or just tool with the perspective relative to other models. Unfortunately, like last time, we'll just have to wait for the data mine on these, but even if they were to be new models, that was a severely misleading statement by GameFreak that wasn't clarified over a period of 6 months. Also, notice how Omori compared it only to the Sun and Moon model import, which obviously didn't have Dynamax forms. They would have also taken a ridiculous path to make things harder for themselves for no reason, and it would be quite frankly a downright stupid decision for 52% of Pokemon to disappear for the sake of merely enlarging the ones that remained. And don't forget that they also got rid of Mega Evolutions as well, for presumably the same reasons they got rid of many Pokemon, even if in that case there was more weight on the balancing the battle system point. Do you really think they would get rid of a fan favorite mechanic and delete 50 designs they've made, for which they might have had to maybe make 20 new Megas to replace it with a new one that required them to make 435 new models from scratch for the mere purpose of making Pokemon bigger? A common counter-argument I've seen to this whole situation is, oh, well, why does it matter if the models are reused? Plenty of franchises do this. Well, the obvious answer is that they said that they weren't, meaning a business lied to its prospective customers. If that doesn't seem problematic to you, I don't know what to tell you. But there's an even further reason that comes back to the reasoning they gave us for why they cut 52% of Pokemon in the first place. Remember, they said that they wanted to balance the battle system, they had to put work into creating the games with much higher fidelity, with higher quality animations, which can be heavily disputed, but that's not the subject of this video, and that they had to put so much work into redoing all of the models from scratch. Not only did they lie to us, but they also tried to escape criticism for deleting one of, if not the most important feature of Pokemon games, namely the Pokemon themselves. Honestly, I don't know what to say about this situation. We all had a sense that this was the case, but until we had absolute confirmation, we were kind of stuck in this anxious limbo, just waiting to hear if we were lied to or not. And now it appears that we were. Errors in the direction of the game, graphical issues, misprioritizing projects, these are all things that we've pretty much come to expect from GameFreak. But blatantly lying to its fanbase to save face? This is pretty unprecedented, at least with a lie this big, and an issue that's so significant to so many people. The reaction has not been good all over social media and is often more intense among the Japanese fans, and honestly, it's often quite justifiable. This is something that I think both sides of the debate can unite upon. A company lying to its customers can in no way be construed as a good thing. Anyway guys, there it is, some immensely disappointing news coming from the Sword and Shield games that confirmed our greatest fear. I'm sure you guys have many thoughts about this, so please be sure to let me know in the comments and leave a like on the video if you're happy to at least have been made aware of the issue. That's all for this time. This has been Spectre, and I'll see you guys next time for another Pokemon video.